Alright, so I want to do a follow-up to my last dissociation video, because I got a couple of comments that I feel like are video-worthy. You know, might answer some questions people have, also just clarify a few things about my experience. Don't know how it's going to go, because I'm a little bit concerned I might be getting a migraine. That's why I've got this ice pack I'm trying to hold on my neck. Someone is burning something nearby, and it smells terrible. It's not the usual bushfire smoke, so yeah, and that's making it harder for me to run my experiment on myself. You know, the experiment that I mentioned technically yesterday, but by the time that you see this video, I will have seen my physio, and then there's too many confounding factors, and yeah, I don't want to have to do an experiment on myself to figure out if my theories are correct, so we just might never know. Anyway, I'm already rambling. Dissociation. Okay. So the comments. First comment. Try and get to the point. Bear with me. First comment. So this one I think was in reference to me pushing back against the lady who wrote to my regular psychologist and my GP saying I had a possible diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder. Because, like, I don't have memory loss, so I'm just like, I mean, the ICD, you could weasel it in because they're a little bit more open than I think they should be, but we use the DSM in Australia, and the DSM is pretty clear about memory loss, memory gaps, whatever. But so this one, I think, is in reference to that. So it's the brain fog and lack of continuity. I think this is from Gilded Asura? I don't know if I'm saying that right, sorry. It's a brain fog and lack of continuity, I think. I know in my case, I remember things, but only the concept and maybe the details, not the event. Like, I caught my first striper. I love the clarification, in brackets, a fish, just in case I thought maybe it was a typo. Mad simple, will have fun with that one. A fish like a week ago, and I don't really remember it outside of where it was and who I was with. The actual event and experience is foggy or fragmented. Okay, so this is not my experience. I remember things pretty fine, I think. I think it's more of an emotional disowning, which could go along with the whole schizoid personality disorder thing. I've heard other schizoids mention something like that, and like, is emotionally, like, disowning emotional states, is that a form of dissociation? Probably. So when I'm in that other state of mind, the main other state of mind that feels the most like it's not me, it's kind of a difficult experience to describe, because it's like my brain is experiencing two different perspectives at once. So like, the me that I considered to be me most of the time, like, I'm still able to watch everything that's going on, and I can still slam on the brakes if I think that I'm about to do something really stupid. Probably slam on the brakes a little bit too much, according to the other part of me, but yeah, like, I still also have this very different experience where things feel quite different, and the thought patterns are quite different, happening at the same time as the other thought patterns, but one is more forward than the other. I think sometimes the other part of me, those thought patterns do come in the background just in the normal me being me, but when there's that sort of switch in perspective, yeah, it's very different and prominent. But then after the fact, I don't really forget anything that happened, and when I was having stronger issues with dissociation, maybe a bit more than a decade ago, there were some things that happened that I'm not inclined to talk about at this stage, or possibly ever. I remember everything that happened. And that's one of the things that makes it kind of uncomfortable, is I remember everything that happened, and I remember sort of like being on the edge of not being able to control what was happening, or not being able to slam on those brakes. There were some things that could have been really bad, yeah, and that's all I'll say about that. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm quite resistant to going that direction again. Like, it's okay if I'm stuffing around in my room and my brain sort of flips the perspective a bit, as long as I don't do anything too stupid. But the stuff that used to happen, yeah, nah. And I feel like that's also even more reason for me not to be in a relationship ever, because if I was in a relationship, the other person would have to see that, and I don't really want to go there again. Yeah. And then on top of that, all the schizoid stuff where I just don't give a shit about people, and everyone that I've dated has at some point realized that I don't really give a shit, but stuck with me anyway. I don't know if that's a dude thing, or if it's that I was just too convincing before I knew that I was schizoid, so, you know, I was like, oh no, I definitely care. I thought I did. I was trying so hard to convince myself that I cared, but if I'm being completely honest, I don't know. I mean, I was dissociating in a different way at the time as well, so, yeah, I don't know, maybe some part of me believed it, but I'm just like, you know. Anyway, so yeah, like, I remember everything that happened. I don't really have this brain fog that this user is talking about. You know, like, what is this? They remember where it was and who they were with, but not the actual event and experience is foggy or fragmented. It's not foggy for me. Like, I have complete awareness of the things that happened, and some things were a little bit disturbing, and yeah. On the upside, the people who were there, I think, are a little bit too anxious to say anything about it. So you'll probably never hear, like, there's a very small number of people I've ever said anything about any of it to. And then there are other things that I don't think I've said to anyone. So that might just be a thing that never comes out. Now, yeah, so, like, I remember all the stuff, basically, is the point. And I can't excuse it as, like, foggy or fragmented. No. Full awareness. It's more like the experience I had at the time is, like, how present. I don't know how to explain it. It's so hard to explain because, like, I'm there, but I'm, like, not in control of it. But I kind of can stop things. So, like, that's kind of a control. So I don't really know. What kind of state of mind did I have to be in to let go some of that control might be an interesting question. But I haven't let things get like that in a very long time, and I don't intend to, so we won't be able to run that experiment, probably. I mean, you know, there's always a chance things change, but unlikely. So yeah, like, I don't think there's any way that you could weasel me into the DID category by saying that the memories are somehow foggy or different or whatever. No, I have full memory. Full relevant memory. I mean, that we forget things over time anyway. Like, there's no abnormal forgetting, is what I'm saying. So yeah, you can't, at least by DSM, you can't diagnose me with DID. You can't even say possible DID. Like, no. It's only by the newer ICD kind of structural dissociation definitions that you might be able to wheeze it in with this whole thing about, you know, the categorization of parts rather than the level of, you know, things being wild. I don't know. The whole field frustrates me. But anyway, I think I sort of addressed that one. Now this one, the next one, which is, I think it's taking up more of the screen than me at the moment. There's a few different parts to this, so we go through it part by part. The first part. Oh, yeah, because I mentioned that DID expert tried to sell me the EMDR and I felt very pressured, which I don't like. And she was surprised that I didn't come back, which I think is hilarious, because if you're dealing with people whose mindset shifts so dramatically, shouldn't you expect unexpected actions? Because, like, as far as she knows, what if a different part of me took over and decided not to go to therapy? You know, like, and she didn't follow up. She didn't try to, like, make contact or anything to find out what was going on. I just never went back. And she'll never know why. I don't think she would watch any of my shit. Anyway, so that supposed DID expert, if she does watch though, let's get into it. That supposed DID expert trying to make you do EMDR is very odd to me, because EMDR is distinctly not recommended for people with DID without a lot of prerequisites being met. First, so established communication, low dissociative barriers between parts, a well-established trusting relationship with the practitioner, definitely didn't have that. A good support system outside of therapy, didn't really have that. Stability, yeah. So yeah, no, I didn't have any of, I mean, probably the established communication, low dissociative barriers between parts. I mean, kinda, but I don't try and talk to it because I'm trying not to encourage that kind of delusion. Yeah, it's more likely to try and berate me, if that makes sense. But yeah, no, didn't trust this DID expert. Like, even the first day of seeing her, I did go back because, like, I was hoping to get answers that weren't answered in that first session, and like the first session's trying to make an assessment. Okay, fine, we're not going to get into everything. But then 2 more sessions after that, and it wasn't what I'm just gonna move that. It wasn't what I was asking, and it was this very much, no, sign up for the EMDR kind of thing, and it felt pointless. I don't like being strung along. You know, I did see a different psychologist, I think, before my schizoid diagnosis, who was constantly stringing me along. Again, actually, on the dissociative things that I experienced. It's like, oh yeah, we'll talk about that next time, constantly, and, you know, waste time with other shit in the meantime. So with the EMDR, I gotta tell you, it gets worse, because EMDR, as I understand it, has more evidence for PTSD, you know, that kind of stuff. And also, at the time, I wasn't too aware of my traumas, so I wouldn't even have known what to talk about. It took me a little while longer to really, like, start to unpack that. To even know what to, because, like, as I understand EMDR, you bring up something and then you do the eye movements and now it doesn't affect you as much, kind of simplification of the theory. Yeah, anyway, so I don't have PTSD. She was trying to convince me that there's heaps and heaps of evidence for it for depression. And, you know, like, I went away and that really, I don't know, it could be the case now, this is a few years ago, but I did not find that much, you know, evidence for it for depression. And it was just EMDR for the sake of EMDR, because that's her pet therapy. And there wasn't any really talk about, you know, parts or anything, like even the dissociation. There was hardly any talk about actual dissociation, which is what I went to see her for. I didn't see her for depression. I went to try and find out what the fuck is going on with the dissociation that I'm told I have. You know, I'm told that's how I should interpret the experiences that I have. Maybe that's why it's so hard to describe things, because it doesn't match what other people are saying they describe. Or sort of vaguely matches, but not quite. I don't know. And it's tricky to work out, and that's why I was trying to see an expert to help me figure things out, and she just wouldn't answer straight question. Wouldn't even answer, you know, in this situation, if this happens, what is the thing that I should do out of these options, basically. And there was just no, like, it was just weaseled out of. Very strange. And then, yeah, trying to sell me EMDR for depression when I didn't even know what traumas I had, didn't even know what I would talk about to do the fucking eye movement thing. Yeah, no, what is it? Established trusting relationship, definitely not. Good support system outside of therapy, was still having issues with parents, not understanding what I was going through, and just, like, I really struggled in the first few years after my schizoid diagnosis, and I'm sure this stuff didn't help. Yeah, so the EMDR situation got worse, and I still am skeptical of the thing overall. Like, I think the talk therapy seems to be the part of it that has the most evidence, but I don't know. I mean, the people who are doing EMDR will talk it up because they're selling EMDR, and then the people who aren't selling out EMDR will talk up other therapies. So, you know, everyone has their pet therapy, and EMDR, maybe that helps some people who wouldn't do the talk therapy otherwise. Maybe they need the distraction of that. There's so many things that could be going on there. I'm not personally a fan. I don't think I could take it seriously myself, and part of therapy is you have to be able to believe in what you're being treated with to some extent. And so, like, this is why ACT therapy didn't work for me, acceptance and commitment therapy, before I knew about schizoid, when it was just working for depression. And, you know, the idea, the acceptance, you accept your situation and you commit to whatever the fuck. I can't accept the situation that I was in. I was like, so what, I just accept that the world is shit and nothing's going to change? Might as well just go and off myself now, kind of thing. Like, that was the feeling. And I think that lady, the ACT lady, is the one who said I should see a psychiatrist. I can't remember exactly what I told her about the world, like, just being objectively shit. I think probably, you know, there was something I said that she realized she couldn't talk me out, or, like, you know, she couldn't use talk therapy to solve the thing that I had laid out. It was like the logic was too much for her. She probably had to get therapy after that, you know, some of them do. I just got that sense from her. Never heard from her again. She's just like, I think you're going to see a psychiatrist. So off I went to the psychiatrist for the first time. That was my experience with ACT. But yeah, I didn't believe in the whole idea of ACT, and so yeah, like, whereas, I mean, I don't think there's any particular therapy that works well for schizoid, but my current psychologist does try things, does try to come up with stuff, does read my diary and, you know, look at points that we could look at, and she's making an effort, and I kind of, like, I can believe in the effort, so I keep changing my mind about whether to show that on screen. You know, She's making an effort. She's trying to figure out how to help me. She also charges me a reduced rate, probably because she's not so confident about being able to help me. But yeah, the fact that she reads my diary, and, like, I know she reads my diary because she'll bring things up that I've forgotten and I've definitely written down. And then also the level of detail that she'll write things in the past, and, like, there are a lot of things that make me think, okay, this is a detail-oriented person who is really trying to do the job, as opposed to the psychologist I had when she left the previous practice before I found her again. That psychologist in the middle was kind of just there for the paycheck and to go up the levels in her career. She didn't really, like, you know, after a certain point, it was clear she'd run out of ideas and we weren't getting anywhere, and I couldn't believe in that, which is why I went, you know, tracked down this psychologist again and went back to her, because she moved from the clinic into her own thing. Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons I've been able to stick. Like, I was going to quit therapy again if I didn't find her, find where she'd moved to. So, yeah, like, one of the important things about therapy is being able to believe in the treatment method and the person delivering it to you. And it can take a damn long time to find the right person because oh my god, the number of psychologists I've burned through, and psychiatrists too. There's only one psychiatrist I've had that I liked, and he retired. I don't even know if he's alive anymore. So yeah, EMDR not for me. And, like, for depression, skeptical as hell, and the things that this person is saying, I kind of look at J73991. I don't know, like, I wish YouTube would put, like, the screen name next to the handle so that I know if this is, like, you know, whatever this username is. I don't know what to call you apart from a bunch of letters and numbers. Come on, YouTube, do better. At least mine is the same with or without the @ sign, but anyway, so yeah, that's that first part. Okay, the next part. Have you looked into OSDD at all? Yes. Basically, it's a short answer. But yeah, catch-all diagnosis when you experience some of the core symptoms but don't quite meet the criteria. So the other part of you could be described, but you don't experience dissociative amnesia. It could be OSDD. Partial DID may also be something to look for. Okay, so the thing with OSDD. Okay, OSDD is a catch-all term. When people suggest OSDD in the context of DID, they usually mean OSDD 1B, which technically isn't a category. It's like OSDD 1, and then there's A or B. You could be, and B is the one that seems most DID-like. where it's just like not so much the memory barriers. Whereas I think the other one is less of distinct personalities. I forget. It's been a while since I looked at it. And then there's OSDD 2 and 3, and I think there's 4. And is there still not otherwise specified, or is that just a placeholder until they put you in a category? I can't remember. I don't care enough to stay on top of this. Now, this is all in... So first of all, when you say OSDD, there are a lot of things that count as OSDD. And so pretty much anyone who has some kind of dissociation that might qualify as a disorder but not fit into any category, pretty much everyone is OSDD. And I think that has to do also with not just DID, but depersonalization, derealization, and whatever else there is. I don't care. I haven't... It gets messy, and I am trying not to have a migraine, and didn't bother looking it all up beforehand because I thought I'll just wing this or the video will not get made. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Remember that, guys. Yeah, so OSDD, a bit of a vague way to say it. Now, when it comes to partial DID, that's kind of the same, but we're looking at different diagnostic manuals. So OSDD is the DSM catch-all term. Partial DID is the ICD one, and like instead of being a catch-all, it is just specifically like the vaguer form of DID. So when you say like it could be OSD or DD or partial DID, it's like kind of the same thing but different manuals. So partial DID would be basically the equivalent of OSDD1, probably OSDD1B. Yeah, so it's not like either or, it's kind of like which system are you basing it on? And as I've said, I'm not particularly impressed with the ICD. The ICD is also the manual that is erasing schizoid as a distinct diagnosis and trying to lump all personality disorders together with just specifiers, and then borderline is the only one that gets to be its own thing. Yeah, no, that's not useful for the rest of us in the wild. It helps to have proper names for things instead of just, oh my god, this whole bunch of specifiers. It's so much harder for us as lay people to talk about. I understand from the research perspective, maybe, but for those of us trying to understand what the fuck is wrong with us, the DSM version is much easier to handle. That's my opinion. Lived experience being one of the vogue things at the moment. So, you know, just saying. Yeah, anyway, so, like, yeah, OSDD. So it's not just a catch-all diagnosis for DID symptoms, it's a catch-all diagnosis for dissociation in general, and there's a lot of different ways that dissociation can be a thing. That's basically what I want to say about that. Now, could I be diagnosed with something like that? I don't know still, because, like, what is the threshold for something to be a disorder? And this is, like, one of the things online, you know, a lot of words from psychology get tossed around a lot. Like, you hear about narcissists all the time, and, like, the distinction between people who have narcissistic traits versus the actual narcissistic personality disorder. People online are not clear about what they're trying to say and kind of conflate the two, and now everyone has NPD, you know, the way that some of these people are talking, and so narcissism kind of gets overused. And yeah, like, you know, there's a difference between, like, me having maybe some dissociative symptoms versus a disorder. Like, depression, major depressive disorder has definitely screwed up my life. Schizoid personality disorder, I don't know how much that has actually screwed up my life, but I think it's a factor in the depression, and the depression is what screwed up my life. So in that way, by a few steps, yes, schizoid's screwed up my life. Probably caused distress to people around me as well, because it's not just, sorry, I'm tapping things near the microphone. It's not just about you, it's also about how people around you are affected, because sometimes crazy people are blissfully unaware of what's going on and how they're ruining everything around them. So, yeah, like, schizoid, definitely a disorder for me, and sort of the level, like, I'm doing a lot better now, but the level of schizoidness, obvious schizoidness in my past. Yep. Oh dear. People trying to get me to talk and stuff, and I'm just like, you know, why bother kind of thing. Anyway, now you can't shut me up, can you? Be careful what you wish for. But as for dissociation, like, how disruptive has that been to my life? I think the parts of it that are just, you know, disruptive, I think can be explained just as well by the schizoid thing. Like, you know, not having a solid sense of identity. Weak identity is kind of common in personality disorders. You know, like borderlines definitely have it, and schizoids can have it. And yeah, I struggle to take ownership of an identity. I mean, like, have you seen how many times I've changed my hair? You know, changing the color, but also like I've had normal hair, I've shaved it off. I don't know what I'm doing. I hope that I will stick to this, because it's turned out to be like, it's kind of fun but also low maintenance at the same time, because the regrowth kind of just blends in. You know, it looks like it's meant to be there, especially with like these bits at the front being dark. I was like, oh yeah, I totally meant that. And then, you know, black tips, they're sort of fading a bit, so I'll get a bit more black on the bottom next time I have it done. Anyway, the point being, I hope that I'll actually stick to this hair. But I thought I was going to stick to my ocean volcano hair a few years back, and that didn't happen. So, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, and my lack of solid identity is one of the reasons that I don't get any tattoos, because I would never be able to decide what to get, especially if it's going to last that long. I don't do any permanent body modifications because I don't know what I want. It's only like medical stuff or like dental stuff that had to be done. Otherwise, I just leave things as I don't even have my ears pierced. You know, I mean, some of it is also laziness because I don't want to deal with aftercare, and that was the final straw for me in terms of the tattoo question. Because when you get a tattoo, you have to shower too much, and I can only shower once a week. I can't be bothered to shower any more than that. Unless, like, I'm really, 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 really grossly sweaty for some reason, which is incredibly rare. Yeah, so, what is that sense of identity? Yeah, the identity disturbance aspect of dissociation. I mean, I feel like I'm more on top of it these days. It does still influence things that I do, but not in the same way that it used to. It's more, I mean, part of my relationship with it has always been that because I didn't know what I wanted for myself, and being depressed, I didn't even want to be here, the logic was, well, I'll do what that part of me wants to do, but I'm going to find a safe outlet. That was the intention. Didn't always happen. Yeah, try and find safe outlets for what's going on in there, which is pretty messed up. But hey, I learned to scream. That's not good enough apparently, but whatever. One of the problems is once I try and go that way of like finding an outlet, the nerdier part of me will get interested in something and sort of derail it a bit. So like, you know, if you demolition videos, you know, random destruction, look how cool that is. But then the sciencey part of my brain will be like, what are the physics here? Or what's another one? Like plane crashes. Yeah, how did that happen? And, you know, watching Air Crash Investigation, or in America I think it's called Mayday, and convincing myself that I would be able to fly a plane in an emergency just from watching that. Yeah, right. Yeah, anyway. So, like, it's influenced my life a lot, but I think I have bigger problems, so does it count as a disorder? That's the point I'm trying to get to. I don't know if it counts as a disorder, really. I don't know. I don't know that there's, like, it could be that I have things wrong. Like, what if my normal state of being is the dissociation, because like it doesn't function the way that DID type things are supposed to. Like, I don't dissociate when I'm stressed. If anything, when I'm stressed I dissociate less. But what if my normal state of being is constant dissociation? In that case it could be a disorder. But like then we get into this philosophical thing of like, what's the real me? And I have spent way too much of my life trying to figure out, who am I? And it's like, who cares? We're all gonna die eventually anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if like the OSDD partial DID is particularly relevant for me, because it's definitely not the biggest problem for me. You know, depression has definitely been the biggest problem for me. And then schizoid is sort of like adjacent to that. Dissociation has probably actually been good for me, because then I've been able to do things that I otherwise wouldn't have done being depressed and schizoid. It's really, my psychology is weird, but yeah, I think a lot of the things that I have done in my life have been because of that other part of me, and trying to find like a way to balance my mind in some way. And yeah, the only exception is like when it fucked off and I went to art school, and that was probably more of a, you know, trying to find therapy for depression, thinking I'd grown out of that whole part of me. It didn't turn out to be true. I was just so depressed. Yeah, anyway, so like most of the stuff I've done, most of the things I've achieved have in some way come back to that other part of me. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know about that. Okay, the last part is kind of like mostly insecure, you know. I'm sorry if I commented the wrong thing. Hey, look, I've been on YouTube a long time. People have commented much worse, and, you know, then gotten very upset with me for pointing out things like, yeah, you gotta be careful giving antidepressants to someone who's bipolar because you can send them manic. And then, like, the person I said that to got super offended because they're like, I go to some psych school, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, well. And then all their friends come and, like, think that I'm bullying this person for pointing out that this is a well-known thing. It's like, okay, guys, calm down. Anyway, and then there's, like, the regular trolls, so on. So, yeah, don't worry too much. But then it goes into, just because I've done a lot of reading on DID and related disorders, have a loved one with a diagnosis. There's a lot of low-quality information out there, and not just from TikTokers. Yeah. So I agree with that part. It's not just the TikTokers. There are some quite serious, you know, people who are like, seem to be psychologists, and like the DID expert that I saw, and, you know, I'm really doubtful of the structural dissociation model. Especially that, like, it can include PTSD but exclude derealization, depersonalization. Like, I feel like that's kind of a bit of a fundamental flaw in structural dissociation. Like, how do you... I don't know. And, yeah, and then... because it's kind of a sensational thing, and people want to believe that it is what it looks like. And then everything gets kind of mixed up because there are people who are like really putting it on and trying to be convincing. And then you hear about people who have it, but it doesn't present the way that, you know, online people sensationalize it to be. But you don't really hear much about what real DID is like. And it's kind of hard to know from the people who seem more genuine online. It's hard to know how much of that is real as well. Even if they seem genuine and less sensational, you know, people can believe things and it could still not be true, or there could be other things behind it, and roleplay and whatever, and dear oh dear. And so, yeah, it's when the experts sort of start falling into that spiral, and it's like, I mean, they're supposed to be the experts, but on the other hand, humans are flawed, and science can be flawed, and this is something that is very hard to measure, very hard to prove. You know, like, they claim to have brain scans. I'm not qualified to be able to look at them and know what the fuck is going on. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably also hard to study, because how do you even find, like, if you wanted to study someone who has DID, to try and figure out how to tell if someone has DID, like, you've got to, how do you know that the candidate you're researching really does have it? Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to make sure you identify people in the first place and make sure you don't accidentally get any of these role players in your research group. And it's supposed to be rare, so how do you find them? It's like with schizoid. How are you going to research schizoid if schizoids never come out to be researched? Yeah, difficult. And so, like, how do we even find out what is really going on, if there really is something going on beyond just, like, malingering, or, you know, sometimes borderline can look like it, various other explanations. Yeah, tricky. But, you know, like, that's just a bunch of rambling. I'm a little bit worried I might have to take the Triptan to be able to sleep. I don't want to be squeezed by the migraine meds all the time, but I feel like this isn't doing enough because I'm still having, like, pains in there. So I may just have to take it, because if I don't, it could be worse by the time I go to bed. I don't know. Like, it's so hard to know with some things. Not just DID, but just what is my body doing and why? And, you know, there are all these medical things I could look at, but which one actually applies to me? I don't know. Anyway, so that's some rambling about, as a follow-up to that dissociation video. I am noticing that it is a bit harder for me to think, so I'm going to stop now. Wow, that ended up being quite long. I hope it was coherent. If not, continue sacrificing goats in my honor. Bye.